What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to Helgar's Hole. My name is Splattercat. We're here at the Nerd Castle taking another look at Shining Rock's shining example of a city builder. If you know anything about me, I love Tropico. Tropico is like one of my favorite city builders of all time. Like it combines my love of the Cold War with also just being able to build and like abuse like my peasants, and that's really all that I ask for. Now, I had an epiphany as I was sitting around thinking about what I wanted to do in this episode, an Epiphany, where I think I may actually just mine through here. From what I remember, there's a tunnel system that you can build, and as you can see, we are really stocked on stone, and so we might be able to make this work. So instead of having to go around the horn right here, I think there's something to be said about the fact that we may be able to mine our way into this little valley, and we can kind of, what I'll do is I'm going to think about maybe reforesting from here, and there's obviously this open space, so it's going to take us a little bit to get that up to its efficiency levels. But right now, with where we're sitting, we really need either another gathering operation, or we need like a farming operation, or we need something, because our food is kind of on the precipice at the moment. It's right on the edge. Like, we made it through. Nobody starved. Nobody died. We're okay. And we have 4 extra laborers. So whatever it is we build at this point, we really want to make sure that it's as effective as possible. So we've got leather. We've got... Okay, so that's working out right there. How are you doing, Gatherer? Gatherer, not doing so well right now. Really kind of... Maybe the season just reset, though, because it is early spring. I think the season just reset, which means he is way ahead of schedule. 160 already. Man, he is killing it right now, and I don't mean that just because he's out killing things, but I mean in general, he's just killing his personal task at the moment. I have unpaused the game. As you can see, our little ant-like deer walking around. And I'm going to continue deforesting this up here in the hope that we can kind of work our way around. And the big juncture that we're finding ourselves at is whether we want to go this way out to this location, which is pretty much all we're going to need for the remainder of the game, or whether we want to go this way, build our city out a little bit, so we'll have both these valleys, we'll connect them with a tunnel right here, and then after we've really got a strong foothold, using all of the resources we've garnered, then we can make a guaranteed push in this direction. Those are the two things that I'm waxing and waning in between, either a gambit versus... It's two different gambits. It's a long-term gambit versus a short-term gambit, or at least a slightly more short-term gambit. Right now, what I know we need to do, though, is we need to get some herb. And so I think what I'd like to do now is we've got a lot of pre-trees around doing their thing, clocking their game, fingers in the air and all that fun stuff. I think... I am a problem fan, by the way. A huge... like Easy E Part 2. I just can't help it. And that's cool. Some people don't have to like my choices, but I feel as though, you know, I don't know, just something I can't stop listening to it. It's strangely catchy. Now then, letting people do their deal. It's kind of like walking away and talking about my diatribes here. The Herbalist Lodge is a good plan until we take into account our food stocks are a little bit weak. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let their long-term health suffer. I'm willing to bet we'll probably get some more people that can be part of an Herbalist Lodge long before they all die off of disease. So instead, what I'd like to do is let's go ahead and take a road up this way. And I do feel as though we probably want to get some kind of farming operation in place now rather than later. It may not be the end-all be-all. I mean, we could presumably go out this way and put in some fisheries and then a trade post right here, which would be sort of an interesting choice, because I don't think we need that much food right now. That is, I hadn't thought about that. Well, now that my hamster is kind of squeaking along in his wheel, let's go ahead and do the herbalist first, and I'll think about other options while we're kind of sitting about. So I think kind of the best location that I could put this herbalist is more than likely going to be right here. Just kind of keep everybody condensed together in this little square region, simply because he's planting trees. You can't grow herbs in a location that doesn't have trees that aren't like 20 years old. And so we want to make sure that we have both our hunting cabins, basically everything that relies on nature, out here in this last little natural patch that we're leaving alive. Like, we're not going to wipe this out or destroy anything. We're just going to kind of make sure that we have the things that we need. And then we're going to build out in this direction so as not to be a saboteur to our own kind of functions down here, our own machinations. I do think I'm going to go out in this direction, so while we wait on that to happen, let's go ahead and wipe those trees out. We do have a lot of extra resources, which leads me to believe it might be a good plan to get a fishery out here. We are running out of tools, so I think we may not outrun the shot clock with regards to our need for a blacksmith, though. So let's go ahead and slot him in right now. We're going to get him jacked into the blacksmithing matrix. It's going to take us some resources. Looks like our stockpile's looking pretty full anyways. I'm going to speed the game up for a brief little bit, and we'll keep an eye on our resources. We do want to make sure that we get some kind of food coming in, though, before the end of the next season, because we're getting a little bit of food set up, but I am going to have to build homes soon, because obviously everything's looking a little crowded right now. If you look, I thought that guy's name was Lung Cheese for a second. That's why I got quiet and went back. I was like, Lung Cheese? Like, did you have like a really gnarly cough? Like, for example, my little sister got pneumonia when she was young, and so like for the rest of her life, her nickname was Wheezy. And so just kind of in that situation, I thought that like Lung Cheese was a slightly meaner version of the same nickname. Just like, nickname your kid Lung Cheese because they won't stop coughing. Oh my. Everybody's clothing's in a fair state, which is good. I prefer to keep things in a fair state rather than a less than fair. I always notice, like, when you review movies online, I always notice how, like, the first star, like, you got, like, a 5-star rating system, but the first star is always, like, this movie's terrible. But then the second star is, like, this weird logarithmic jump to, like, it's alright. Like, so how did we go from it's absolute... I feel like there are more shades of absolutely terrible than you're actually, like, letting there. I feel like you're really kind of weighting this. It's like one of those Lee Atwater type polls where it's really kind of weighted in the direction you want it to be. Like 4 of these stars are semi-positive, and one of them is just like, forget this movie. I feel like we need to like distribute that a little bit better. Just as somebody who's a little bit kind of obsessed with statistics and polling, I really sort of feel like we've kind of gotten off on the wrong foot and kind of stilted this one a bit. And I don't like my statistics on stilts. I don't like anybody on stilts. Clowns come on stilts, and that has forever ruined clowns for me. A lot of pre-trees going on down here. Because we've got so many logs, oh, it's done. Okay, let's go ahead and strap them in. So this herbalist, what is this herbalist going to do? She's going to go out and these little patches right here, you see that little guy? That's an herb. It looks like kind of a crazy cabbage or something, or like, I don't know. But in any case, she's going to go, it's not a cabbage, I forget, it's like a parsley or something. She's going to go out here and she's going to gather them. And then we're going to get together, we're going to smoke them, and we're going to feel better about our lives, which in turn is going to make everybody just happier and also healthier. And so that's where we're going to leave this. And now that this is all chopped down, we do want to think about the possibility of taking our 2 remaining laborers and making them labor. Obviously, it's in their name. I'm going to put in a fishing dock right here. And that's going to provide us with a little bit of extra food. I'm also going to make sure that this river runs off the map. So it does. So that being the case, we can now install ourselves a dock right here. In our previous playthrough, I never got to this point in uploading, but I put, basically there was a lake in the middle, and I wasn't sure as to whether the trade post would work, like on a lake, but it was the only place. Looking at the map, there was nowhere else I could build this within a reasonable distance from my city. And so I was like, screw it, and I built it on a lake. Needless to say, we didn't get any traders, and it kind of... I mean, there are certain, you don't want the one kind, like you don't want the normal kind of traders showing up in your town. Like really, traders are one of those things. You want people to be loyal to the cause because honestly, if we're going to be out here surviving and dying together, you just want to make sure that everybody is really kind of dedicated to the overall trajectory, the path in life that they've been given, which is dying of horrible diseases and like hoping you make it out the other end one day. But the other type of trader really kind of supplies you with the things you don't have. So what is the trader's function? Well, getting off my terrible punny joke streak here. Oh, we also need a blacksmith. That is disappointing because that depletes my fisherman. Alright, well, we'll take the blacksmith right now because I do feel as though we really, really, really need more tools in order to get by here. If you look, let me close that down. We've only got 4 replacement tools left. And so a blacksmith, what he's going to do is he's going to take all this iron in our stockpile. He's going to turn it into tools. At which point those tools will be used for us to bang on the walls. Because if you don't have anything to bang on the walls with, they just start doing it with their foreheads. These are not educated people right here. These are really kind of backwoods peasants at the moment. And so in lieu of educating them, I'm just going to give them sharp, pointy objects and be like, this make job easier. And once they've locked that down, like really once they've got a firm hold of that concept that the job becomes easier when they have a little bit of toolage, then we'll move to the more complicated subjects like not using your forehead to dig a mine or not using your incisors to chop down a tree. Like we are not a fan of the beavery here. Like you don't do any beavery. Oh good, we're starting to stockpile herb. Fantastic. Anyways, we're not a fan of kind of chopping trees down in a beavery way in this village. It's really kind of a bad idea. Now, I'm getting the sneaking suspicion we're going to need some new houses pretty soon. And what in the hell is that? What? Please fix this. It upsets me. It deeply upsets me that that's where it is. I'd also like for you to destroy that little strip right there. No? That's how. Right there? No? Remove my road, damn you! I know there's a road removal tool here somewhere. Road removal tool! Where are you? It's that one right there. It's the one that has a little road symbol. Shoulda known. Shoulda known. And that's what happens when you don't pay attention, kids. Let me make sure this fishery... Oh, good. We had a bunch of people grow up, so we have a few more... Why don't you grow up, peasant? In any case, we've had... Oh, our pre-trees are now bursting into post-trees, which is very, very nice. Because we can then turn them into pleasant letters, and that's where the post-joke all comes together. So you see, you thought that joke wasn't going to conclude itself in a punny fashion, but no, I brought it full circle. I brought it full circle. I was well aware of where that whole diatribe was going. And there it is. It completed amicably. Or at least semi-successfully. It was a bad joke to begin with, but we do the best that we can with what we have here. This fishery, how are you doing already? The fishery doesn't really supply that many fish. One thing to be aware of is this is kind of a supplementary solution. Don't rely on fishing docks because I don't feel like they ever quite get the job done to a satisfactory level by comparison to other methods that you could like employ. This seems like a reasonable spot to put in a farm, now that I'm looking at it, although there is a hill right there. I wasn't looking at it with like a 3D perspective, so there is a hill right there that may kind of block off my desires. Sort of punch me in the gonads of ambition. But in any case, we may be able to build a farm either here or here. We'll make use of the land, nonetheless, and we're back up to 32 tools. What I would like to do is, because we have such a massive iron surplus, I'm going to go ahead and up our tool allotment to 250, because tools are a really, really good thing to trade off later on down the line, and if you have a nice stockpile of them, you can really kind of go to work getting the things that you require to make your civilization more successful. So while this game doesn't employ tech trees, you start with very specific things that you have and you don't have. So we start with a very specific set of farming things like beans, or for example, you start with beans and potatoes, or potatoes and squash. Like you really only start with two things, and if you want to trade for the new seed type, that's how you kind of advance yourself along the tech tree. So while the game says it has no tech trees, it's more you have to trade your way along rather than advance yourself kind of intellectually. The food supply is still waning at a dangerous level, which leads me to think I may want to come up with yet another solution. Let me take a look around the forest down here. I do wish that there was a way to set all the trees down and see how many resources we're laying around. There are still some mushrooms sitting over there, but I do feel as though, yeah, the reserve of food is low. Okay. Well, in that situation, what we may do in order to make it through the summer is put in another fishery right here, because the forest is definitely not supplying what I need it to supply right now. We had a reasonably decent season, but by comparison to the season before it, I mean, not where I want them to be. So I think another fishery right here might be nice, especially since we can't just plop down more hunter-gatherer lodges, which would be the easy mode solution. We may also want to think about tasking ourselves with digging through here with a tunnel or something, making our lives a little bit easier, because I think this is going to be the next location that I start foresting. So we'll build up this way a little bit, and then we'll clear this out for more development, and this will be our next forestry location, because it really seems to be the only spot in which there's a lot of trees that I can make use of. Let me have a look at my tunnel system, and I've never built a tunnel in this game before. A tunnel cannot be placed in this location. And why not? Ah, there it is. And what's that going to cost me? That's going to be an expensive project, and one that really kind of begs whether or not it's going to be more efficient just to place stockpiles. I think I'm going to leave it with the stockpile option. Let's go ahead and build a road out that way so at least they can travel quickly. And what I'm going to do now is, instead of doing another fishery, I really think I should probably just drop in another gatherer's hut. Say meow. That seems about right. And so once the gatherer's hut is in there, I'll really kind of decide whether later on the amount of stone that it's asking in order to get that project done is going to be worth it. But at the moment, I definitely am sort of feeling as though it's probably not the best option to jump in on right now. We're going to chop down some trees over there. With regards to our supply chain at the moment, we have a ton, like an absolute ton of building materials, which is rare. Usually I find myself on the other end of the spectrum, and given the map that we started out with a pretty weak map as far as maps go. We have so much area that is really lacking in equity or any source of, or like any real use. Like these mountains would be nice for a mining operation, I guess later on down the line, but for now, this is really just wasted space for us, especially this big knob right here. Like really just sort of a douche taking up our space. Our reserve of food remains low. That's because I'm willing to bet people in here are like, my family needs 900 venisons. Let's build a few more houses, because I am getting the sneaking stink of overpopulation right now. Or really kind of people crowding into the houses, kind of doing that duplex thing where there's just way too many people in one situation. I'm going to place the houses semi-randomly. Just an aesthetic choice on my side. I mean, I don't really care about efficiency. And so there it is. We're just going to build houses wherever I feel like it. Willy-nilly, and that's where they'll stay. We also need to increase our amount of gatherers up to 8. Because what the gatherers will do is they will redistribute themselves in between these two locations, and that will really, really hurt your efficiency. What we need to do in order to make them work a little bit better now, too, is to make another storage barn so that they don't have to walk so far in order to drop off their goods. So we'll put a storage barn right there. Because we're going to put in another forester over here, I think it's probably going to be a good idea to open up another stockpile as well. So we'll just kind of do a big old stockpile right there so that we never have to deal with it again. I may also put a mine right here so that the stockpile is very, very close so the miners can just run everything where it needs to go. Might be an efficient solution to the problem. And so now with 2 gatherers working, I feel like we're probably going to be able to weather the early mid-game now. There are a lot of deer over here, which leads me to believe they may be relocating. The deer have like weird migratory patterns, like they do the same thing as sparrows carrying coconuts and whatnot, where they find themselves kind of moving around the map as your civilization grows. And so it may be at a beneficial point where you close down one hunter's lodge and open up another one at a different location. But for now, we're going to leave it where it's at. How are these houses doing? Okay, so that leaves us, I think, with enough space for the next little... Her name is Parasol. Parasol really sort of sounds like something you would spray in the air to remove a stink. That might be because it contains the word aerosol, though, and it's just kind of triggering those memories. So that was easy wordplay. Easy! Let's move on to something more difficult. Let's work a little bit harder. I owe you guys better. With regards to this storage bar getting done, I'm kind of just sitting around waiting for it to happen. We have no laborers left, which means we've kind of hit that critical mass as our township grows, where I feel as though I'm stuck kind of sitting around just talking about things with you guys. And so let's kind of think about what our plans are going to be. We're firmly into our 4th year now. It's about to reset into the 5th. And so being divisible by 5 and keeping everything organized, I think is a really good time to think about where we want to go with our village. Kind of plan this thing out a little bit better. I think... Well, looking at our supplies, I think a tailor's probably going to be something that we want to make use of soon, especially considering we have 54 leather on hand. So I may put a tailor in right here as soon as somebody grows up and is able to work. The tailor, his function is that he makes more clothes, which makes people happier. If your people have clothes, they aren't walking around naked, which means nobody's judging you for packing a 2-incher. Like, that's really, and obviously nobody's like just sitting around staring at women on the street corner. Basically, we're keeping everybody productive, or at least we're doing our best. Now, I have no idea how a nudist colony functions. I simply, my minuscule brain would just explode if I was put, like, if I was put into a nudist situation. I think I would just more or less kind of just, I think it's kind of the last 4 generations of my family, just kind of like that Protestant upbringing, and just teaching you to be ashamed about things you really shouldn't be ashamed about. I really sort of think that that's what it is. I think I would adapt, because I feel as though I'm kind of a variable person. I'm kind of liquid, you know, I just kind of flow in between situations as I need to. But still, I think there would definitely be kind of a sink or swim adjustment period where I'm forced to be nude all of a sudden. And so, with that in mind, keeping all of our little peasants, obviously we've talked about the fact that our peasants are really sort of a backwards people. We want to make sure that things keep functioning properly. So I'm going to make sure they're all clothed, so it's just like one less thing for them to worry about and stare at and gossip about, because there's not much else to do. I mean, there's a fishery, there are some houses, and aside from like adultery, there's not really a whole lot of other things that small villages like this do. Our tool count is really sort of growing monumentally. Our food supply has recovered nicely, which is good because we introduced a new place where they could really get a ton of food from, so that's to be expected. Let me look and see how this guy's doing with his efficiency, because at the moment, not so great. Still not so great, and I think that's probably due to the fact that a large portion of his and her gather zone is kind of wrapped up in this large mountain range, which is disappointing. I like to make more use of what I have, but as it stands right now, it's a function of the nature of the land we were given, so we're just going to do our best. I don't really know where I want to jump off to from here. I'm really kind of at a loss at the moment. So I think I'll go, just in order to do anything. We've got 2 extra laborers. That's not really enough to set up a farm or do anything useful. So I think what I'd rather do is let's put a tailor in. And we'll drop him right there, just to fill in the space. Just to say that we did. And then I should probably put in a couple houses over here, because it'll be convenient for my herbalists. But I'll do that once I actually get this whole industry running. So the cutoff point's going to be down here, where I can start kind of building and deforesting things. Alright. Well, we've still got a lot of space to play with. I mean, I really do feel as though we've got all of this to develop, we've got all of this to develop, so I don't want to bite off more than I can chew, especially since my jaw's been kind of tired lately. I've been, like, gnawing in my sleep or something. I don't know what it is. But in any case, I've got, like, this burny thing going on, like, in my cheek pockets. Like, you know where a hamster stores their nuts? Well, my nut storage area, and yeah, I know, there's a joke there somewhere. Go ahead. Feel free. Bust the nut joke. But anyways, my little nut storage pouch areas just kind of feel as though they're just, they're not working at optimal capacity right now. I feel like the muscle there is really, like, feeling the need to take a day off, and it might be because I talk too much. That's obviously one of the first things that I investigated when I was in that situation. Fishing Doc, how are you doing right now? Not so terrible, actually. That's a lot better throughput than I had expected from them previously. 1,000 fish is not bad. That is not bad. That's not terrible. 2 more laborers ready to go, and I've already assigned a tailor, which is good. The tailor is going to craft us new clothes, which you'll see is she'll drop those off over here, or he. Who's working here? Who are you? Okay, so it's a gentleman from what I can tell. Anyways, he's going to drop the clothes off over here, and then people are going to come and loot them, and it's going to make them happier and healthier. That's really all. That's the only thing you need to know about the process. Now, what you might consider is that if we can store that stuff up, we can sell it to somebody when they come along to trade with us. And it looks like our stone supply is sort of tapering out on us. Not to be confused with tapering out on us, which is the art of just snuffling around for grubs and things in the ground. I don't even know what a tapir eats, so I'm just kind of talking blindly at the moment. But they have a weird snuffle trunk, and one thing that I know about animals with snuffle trunks is that they're adorable. A snuffle trunk, it's just an elephant's trunk on other animals. And so anteaters, tapirs, anything with a snuffle trunk that kind of goes around, it's like anything that does that, I find that just absolutely adorable. I've always wanted a baby tapir as a pet. I really, really, truly and sincerely do. I don't think there's a lot of animals that I don't want as a pet, though. I'm really sort of greedy when it comes to, like, finding animals and being like, you shall inhabit my domicile, and your little hoofs will get used to the feel of carpet. Never again shall you live the natural life. You shall live the metropolitan life. You will be a hipster pig, a hipster snuffler, and you will wear trendy glasses, and also little booties. Because if you've ever seen a picture of a pig with little shoes on, it is the greatest thing ever. I can't stop looking and clapping, and I keep doing like this little... It's the kind of thing that I imagine people that work for Sanrio do. Like people that produce their products. Or, for example, people that live over... God, what was the name of that company back in the 90s that produced all that colorful stuff that girls liked? Like, they did, like, stickers and all kinds of crazy... Lisa... I can't remember anyway. It's been too long. It's been far too long since the 90s. Like, I lived through it. I lived through a pretty good portion of the 80s, too, to where I can recall kind of good cartoons. That's kind of the difference. We've had a renaissance, though. I will say that there's been a renaissance of good cartoons, like, in the last 3 to 4 years, starting with, like, Adventure Time and SpongeBob. Those are, like, the really 2 standouts that I can remember, but with regards to, like, comparing all cartoons nowadays to cartoons from the 80s and 90s, I really feel as though that industry is sort of slacking. Or maybe they're just not as adventurous as they used to be. How are you doing over here? Oh, you don't have enough laborers. Okay, seeing as we have 4 laborers, I'm going to go ahead and slot them in. Doing pretty well over here. Doing pretty well. We've got a lot of food going around. We've got a lot of building supplies kind of holding down the fort. Or comprising the fort in any case. I think what I'd like to do now is let's get going with trading. And so your trading is going to be found, I think, in your storage markets. Yeah, right here. And it has to be up against water because the guys have to apparently boat themselves in. And so I think... right here's a pretty good spot for it. It's going to be 80, 80, 40. We can afford that right now, so let's go for it. I'm going to put in a road, and getting ourselves a bit more lucrative. What's going to happen now is every now and again, traders are going to show up. It's going to function very much like it does in towns, where once you set up a market stall, people just start showing up and selling you stuff, and that's going to give us access to things like cattle. It's going to give us access to things like new farming crops, and I know we haven't started farming yet. But at the same time, if we ever decide to do so, especially once we run into this large tract of open land up here, which this looks like primo farming land, that's probably what we're going to go for. So once we get there, we'll definitely get that started. But in any case, it's going to allow us to shore up our difficulties, so our maladies or our deficiencies. If there's anything that we're kind of missing at the moment, that's going to allow us to remedy it. This little quadrangle is really kind of functioning well right now, so I feel like we can ignore it for the time being. I'm kind of doing my closing arguments right now. Let me pause the game off so that we're not wasting time. This one over here still needs to be developed. We simply don't have the laborers to do it right now. I have enough laborers right now at this second to put in a forestry lodge over here, which I think is going to be the next best choice in order to kind of maybe keep things optimal, I guess. And beyond that, I may put in another herbal garden over here. I may put in another hunter's lodge. And then from there, I think we're just going to have really unimpeded development. Those two should allow us to really kind of grow like a weed. I mean, not to be punny, because we are collecting weeds in order to grow like weeds, but in any case, we will start to kind of resemble the things that we're planting. So anyways, I'm going to put in 2 more houses. My name is Splattercat. Thank you for joining me here in the Nerd Castle for another episode of our playthrough of Shining Rocks Banished. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Take care out there, everybody, and I will see you next time.